Hello and welcome to the Night Sky Reader. I'm here with a story to help you relax, meditate, or gently drift to sleep. Tonight, Nets at Dusk, Oil by Night. Settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin. Before anyone speaks, the nets open with a dry hush under the first tree. They spread over dust and time, over the curled brown leaves that have collected where the roots corrugate the ground. Their woven surface catches on small stones and then settles flat enough to receive what the branches let go. Above them, the olive leaves show two colors at once, dark green where the last light touches their upper sides, pale where the undersides turn in the evening breeze. The sky is still holding some warmth near the horizon, but already the higher blue is deepening toward indigo. The first olives arrive not with drama but with a light tapping, a few at a time into the net, then more. Some are black and full, some still green, some in that middle shade that holds purple and bronze together. They roll over the weave like small smooth weights, finding the folds and stopping there. Hands move after them, not fast, not idle either. This is one evening of the olive harvest, and everyone here understands the same simple thing. Fruit lifted from branch or ground has already entered time. It should not sit long in a hot pile. It should not be bruised under its own weight. It should move from olive grove to olive mill while it is still cool from the falling air, still carrying the smell of leaf and dust and tree. Tomás stands near the first open net with his sleeves pushed up and a cap darkened at the brim by use. He does not stand apart. He stoops to pull one edge wider with the others, then looks up through the branches as if the tree itself might tell him how quickly the evening is turning. He knows the order ahead of them: gather, sort, crate, load, wash, crush, mix, separate, settle. He can feel the whole chain at once, as if it already exists inside his hands. That knowledge keeps him useful. He has seen what happens when a harvest drifts into casualness, fruit waiting too long, warmth building, a bright oil arriving muted, and the thought of it keeps his shoulders tight. Layla works 2 trees down, steady on the dry ground, one boot braced against a low trunk as she reaches under a branch to guide olives inward with the side of her hand. She notices the fruit by touch as much as sight. The firmer olives click against one another more sharply. Softer ones have a muted sound. Dust clings differently to each skin. She is simply in contact with them and the work becomes clearer because of it. Around them the grove holds the kinds of smells evening sharpens instead of softens. Crushed thyme underfoot, dry bark, a little earth opened where the net pegs go in. The faint bitter scent from leaves rubbed between fingers. Far off, just visible beyond the descending rows of trees, a light comes on at the mill, then another. Small warm squares against the blue. No one hurries to fill the silence. The sounds here are enough. A hand comb passing through a low branch, olives ticking down, the scrape of a net edge drawn inward, a shallow crate set on the ground, someone clearing a throat once and then not again. Tomás watches how the fruit gathers. Not too much in one place, not stepped on, not left long in a fold. The quiet tension of the evening is simple and constant. Fading light can make roughness easier. Growing volume can make people careless. But the work does not ask for force. It asks for exactness repeated many times, each small decision protecting what the trees have given. By the time the first net is full enough to lift at its corners, the grove has changed color. The silver undersides of leaves show more plainly now. The trunks have gone darker. In the distance, the olive mill lights remain steady, waiting. Near the tree, the new rhythm begins as the first olives slide from net to crate with a low, hard patter, and the night's long passage from branch to oil quietly starts. They draw the olives to the center of each net in measured sweeps, bringing fruit, leaves, and a little dust together, then separating them again by hand. A twig is tossed aside. A shriveled olive is pinched out. Most of the leaves are removed with quick practiced touches. their dull undersides catching the last daylight before falling to the ground. What remains in the crate is not perfect, and does not need to be. It needs to be sound. The crates are shallow, vented, stacked nearby in neat short columns. They matter more than they appear to. A sack would collapse fruit into fruit, trapping heat, pressing skins until freshness flattens into something duller. In shallow crates, the olives lie in a loose layer. Air can move between them. Their own weight does less damage. When Leia fills one, she stops before it mounds. The level surface is part of the care. Nuno moves among the stacks with a quiet economy that makes the labor seem lighter than it is. He lifts by the handles close to the body, turning each crate just enough to settle it into place without knocking the fruit around. He says little. His steadiness is visible in the way columns rise evenly in the truck bed, never leaning, never packed so tightly that unloading becomes rough. He is the link between grove and mill, and he honors that middle place by making it uneventful. Tomás notices every full crate, as if counting them might control the evening, though he does not speak the numbers aloud. So he keeps glancing from the crates to the remaining trees, then toward the road, then back. But the others do not answer his private calculation with anxiety. Rosa, still in the grove before she returns to the wash line, lifts a handful of leaves and lets a few clean olives run through her fingers to test their dryness. She does this the same unhurried way each time, as if her hands have their own agreement with the fruit. Layla tips a crate slightly, listens to the soft movement of skins against plastic, and sets it flat again. Nuno slides a sheet between stacked layers so the upper crate will not grind against the one below. Each action says the same thing without words. Good oil begins here, before steel and motors, while the fruit is still only fruit and can still be damaged by impatience. The light lowers another degree. The bark on the trunks loses detail. When a crate fills now, the olives show more by sheen than by color. Their rounded surfaces hold the last available brightness. Enough on that one, Tomás says softly, not because anyone is overfilling it by much, only because he feels the line where enough becomes a little too much. Layla nods and levels the top with the flat of her hand. This is how the pace establishes itself. Not slow for its own sake, not fast because there is more to do. A working speed that keeps the fruit intact and the people breathing evenly. By the time the last net under this row of trees is folded up, the truck nearby has gained its modest load of shallow crates, each one carrying a layer of olives toward the next threshold. When the truck bed is finally full for this short trip, the air has cooled enough that the metal rails no longer hold the day's heat. Nuno checks the stack once more with both hands, pressing lightly at the corners. The crates answer with a slight plastic creak and stay where they are meant to stay. The road from grove to olive mill is not long. That matters. The fruit is most vulnerable in these plain in-between stretches when no visible transformation is taking place. Distance, waiting, rough handling, trapped warmth, all of them can work quietly against quality. So the truck moves without haste and without jolting, tires passing over pale gravel, then onto the darker road that threads between stone walls and low fields. The grove behind them is already blue-gray. The road still carries some warmth. The mill ahead glows brighter with every minute the sky darkens. Its open doors are not theatrical. They are practical rectangles of light, yellow on concrete, a welcome for the fruit and for the people who know the sequence waiting inside. Layla rides in the cab beside Nuno, hands resting on her knees, palms marked with olive stains that will take their time to fade. She looks out at familiar outlines passing into evening. Rows of trees, a cypress darker than the rest, a small house with one kitchen window lit. The ride gives the body a brief change. After bending and lifting, stillness. After the grove's dry sounds, the engine's low note. Behind them, the crates shift once at a corner, then settle. Tomás follows in a smaller vehicle, arriving just after the truck. He loosens slightly when he sees the mill already prepared. Hoses coiled where they should be, intake area cleared, lights on above the washer and crusher. A night like this does not need invention, it needs readiness. The olive mill, under its practical brightness, is warm but not overheated, cleaner smelling than the grove, touched by damp stone, rinsed metal, and the faint residue of previous runs. It is contemporary in the quiet way many such places are now, stainless steel and controlled temperatures working beside habits older than the equipment. The doors remain open to the evening, letting in cooler air. Moths have already begun to orbit the outer lamps. Nuno backs the truck carefully to the receiving area. The engine stops. For a moment before unloading begins, there is a complete stillness, the kind that comes when motion has done its part and the next part has not yet started. Then, crate by crate, the fruit is lifted down. The shift from field to mill is not dramatic. It is a continuation. The olives have left the trees, crossed the short road, and entered the place where each stage ahead becomes visible in turn. Tomás takes one crate from Nuno, feels the balanced weight, and is relieved by what his hands tell him. The fruit is still cool. The layers are not crushed. The evening has not run ahead of them. Inside, Rosa is ready at the intake. She reaches for the first crate, and the first olives of the night move toward water. At the washing line, the fruit meets its first clear threshold. Rosa tips a crate with a practiced angle that lets the olives slide without slamming. They enter the hopper in a thick, soft rush, interrupted by the lighter drift of leaves and the occasional small twig. Dust that was unremarkable in the grove becomes visible here against steel, a fine dryness on skins and stems. Above the line, a fan draws off the loosest leaves as the olives rise. A few brittle ones spin briefly in the air before dropping into their own bin. The heavier fruit continues on. Water receives the olives next, not violently, not in a deep plunge, but in a controlled wash where dust loosens and the field begins to fall away. Rinse water runs over the skins and around them, turning momentarily cloudy, carrying off pale grit and fine fragments of leaf. The olives emerge altered not in essence but in surface. Their matte bloom brightens into a cleaner sheen. Green looks greener, black takes on a deeper gloss. They seem cooler for having passed through water and metal in one clean movement. Rosa watches the flow more than the clock. Too much at once can crowd the line. Too little leaves the machinery idling without reason. Her patience is exact, and Tomás sees it. He stands near enough to intervene if needed, yet nothing calls for intervention. The pace holds. He checks what matters. Are leaves clearing well? Is the fruit moving cleanly? Is the wash thorough without becoming delay? The temptation in a busy evening is always the same. Push more through. Save a few minutes here and there, but the minutes saved at the wrong stage cost something subtler later. Rosa's hands, steady on crate after crate, keep that truth in front of him without saying it. Layla takes the empties aside, stacking them where they can dry. Water beads on her forearms. The floor near the washer is cool underfoot and patterned with reflections from the overhead lights. A small stream runs toward the drain, carrying dust the grove no longer needs. This part of the process calms people in a particular way. There is relief in seeing the fruit cleaned. The harvest has crossed from open air into controlled handling. Outside, branches still stir in the dark, but inside the sequence has narrowed. Each olive now belongs to the line. The sounds are small and cyclical. Water rinsing, conveyor moving, the intermittent clatter of an empty crate set down, a fan's continuous breath, not harsh mill sounds but sounds softened by repetition and by the knowledge that the work is proceeding as it should. Tomás touches one washed olive briefly before it goes on, smooth, taut, cooler than the room. He smells the wet freshness on his fingertips, a simple scent, fruit and leaf relieved of dust. He lets it pass. The clean olives move together toward the next machine, and everyone's attention follows. At the crusher, the olives cease to be separate. The washed fruit disappears into the machine hole, carrying skin, flesh, pit, and all the small differences gathered from different branches and exposures of the grove. Then the crusher takes them past sight and returns them as paste. It arrives thick and green-brown, denser than many people expect the first time they see it. Not liquid, not yet close to oil in any obvious way. It has body and grain. Tiny fragments of pit are distributed through it. The smell changes at once, and fills more of the room than the washed fruit ever could. Whole olives smell quiet. Crushed olives announce themselves. Fresh-cut leaf, bitter green. A sharpness that reaches through the nose and settles at the back of the throat, clean and alive. Ivo, the evening apprentice, stands a little back at first, listening more than looking. Early on he thought skill in an olive mill might mean always moving, always adjusting valves, always answering one sound with another action. Now he is learning that many machine sounds need no answer. The crusher's hum is one of them. It is not asking for alarm, it is doing its work. Tomás leans close enough to judge consistency. He watches the paste emerge in a continuous mass, then break into folds as it enters the next chamber. Tonight it looks right. Not smooth, not rough. A living middle state between fruit and oil. The warmth in the room rises a little here. Not oppressive, just noticeable after the washing area. Motion generates heat. Layla wipes a trace of paste from a lip of steel with a scraper, and the color catches her eye, brighter where it thins to a film, almost luminous green at the edge before deepening into brown where it gathers thicker. She smells it on the tool afterward and understands, through one small sensory fact, that the path to oil is not a clean leap. It passes through this dense stage, this fragrant and unlovely abundance, before anything shines. Tomás is still measuring the evening in sections completed. Grove done. Intake done. Washing done. Crushing underway. Yet the crusher also reminds him of the limit of counting. Once the fruit is paste, it cannot be returned to what it was. The change is irreversible and ordinary at the same time, one more reason not to grip the work too tightly. A little paste clings to the chute, then is caught by the following mass and drawn along. The machine continues. The smell steadies. The room takes on that unmistakable atmosphere of active processing, clean steel and green intensity meeting under electric light, but no oil is visible yet. The process has advanced, and the result remains hidden. From the crusher, the paste moves into the malaxer, where everything seems at first glance to slow down. The malaxer is where people unfamiliar with the work often grow impatient. The fruit is no longer whole. The machine is running. Why not rush toward the visible reward? But this stage is not built for rushing. It is built for quiet assistance. Inside the covered chamber, paddles turn slowly through the paste, folding it over itself again and again so the tiny droplets of oil can begin joining into larger ones. Time matters here. Temperature matters. Too cold and the droplets gather poorly. Too warm and freshness can be lost. Too brief and the process remains incomplete. Too long and the paste gives up more than one wants. Tomás knows all this in the body before he thinks it in words. For most of the evening he has been counting what is next. Here the work asks something else of him. There is less to do with his hands, and more to notice. The paste turns under slow paddles, green-brown and heavy, then gradually more lustrous where the surface catches light. Its movement is not lively. It is deliberate, almost solemn, each fold replacing the one before it. A faint warmth gathers near the machine, controlled and monitored, never allowed to drift. On the outer lid, a little condensation forms and clears. The room's sound narrows to a low motor, an occasional step, the soft scrape of Ivo moving a bin into place nearby. Ivo peers through the viewing panel when he can, then stops peering so hard. There is not much to see if seeing means action. The paste goes around, the paddles continue. Minutes pass, yet the hidden change is the point. He begins to understand why Tomás sometimes stands still in front of a machine as if listening through the noise to something slower beneath it. Layla comes to the malaxer from the washing area after the last of the first load has entered the line. She rests one hand briefly on the cool rail beside the chamber and smells the air. The sharpness from the crusher has softened here, becoming rounder, less abrupt, though still unmistakably green. She can tell, without trying to formulate it, that the paste is settling into itself. Tomás checks the temperature, then stops checking so often. He looks instead at the way the paste takes the paddles, at the sheen that appears then disappears, at the scent rising when the lid is opened briefly, that balanced smell of fruit, leaf, and something just beginning to free itself. The clock is still on the wall. He does not ignore it, but he no longer treats it as the whole truth of readiness. Not every important change announces itself. Some of it happens under a lid, in controlled warmth, under slow repetition, because forcing would do harm. The olives have already given what force could get from them. Tomás feels his own pace answer. The tightness that accompanied him from the grove eases, not all at once, but by degrees, a loosening in the chest, a small settling of the jaw. He sees Rosa rinsing the last wash tray untroubled. He sees Nuno leaning against the doorframe for 1 minute of rest before the next crates arrive. He sees Ivo waiting without fidgeting. Precision is already alive in the room, distributed among other people, held by the machines, held by the sequence itself. He does not have to squeeze it into place. When he lifts the lid briefly again, the paste below looks denser and also somehow more open, as if the same material has begun to release from within. He breathes in, then lets the lid lower gently. No rush, he says, mostly to Ivo, but also to the room and perhaps to himself. Ivo nods, and the nod carries more understanding than explanation. The paddles continue their slow turning. Outside the open doors, the last true color has left the sky. Inside, under practical lights, the paste keeps folding, and the whole mill seems to settle around that unhurried motion. When Tomás decides the batch is ready to move on, the decision comes less from impatience than from recognition. The stage has found its exact span. That is enough. From the malaxer, the paste passes into the separator, and what has been hidden begins finally to show. The centrifuge takes the dense mixture and spins with a contained, serious hum. Here, the process uses speed inside the machine so the people outside can remain calm. Solids, vegetation, water, and oil are urged apart by difference in weight, each finding its path. No one crowds the outlet. This moment has meaning, but it does not need applause. Tomás stands nearest, Ivo just behind him, Layla to one side wiping her hands on a clean cloth. The steel housing gives little away. The sound is steady, not shrill, and the line feeding in remains even. Then from one narrow spout the first stream appears. It is thinner than a beginner expects, not a gush, a thread. Then a fuller run, cloudy green gold against the stainless steel. Fresh olive oil at this stage is not clear. Fine particles and moisture still move within it, giving it a soft opacity, as if the grove has followed it this far in a suspended form. Under the lights it shifts from green to gold and back again depending on angle, but the main impression is not color, it is arrival. Layla catches a little in a small metal cup because someone always does, not ceremonially, simply to inspect what the machine is yielding. The oil clings to the cup in a dense sheet before settling. She lifts it near her face and inhales. The aroma is fresh and green, with a faint peppery brightness that belongs more to the throat than the nose. She nods once. Tomás looks at the stream and feels less possession than relief. This visible line contains the work of nets, crates, cool transport, washing, crushing, and waiting. It also contains the restraint of each stage. Nothing spectacular has happened. Everything necessary has happened. The oil continues to run. Beside it, other outputs move where they are meant to move, darker liquids, damp solids, the remainder of what the fruit carried. But the eye returns to the green gold thread. It arrives quietly, and because it arrives quietly, the room receives it without strain. Yet even now the process is not finished. Fresh olive oil, just separated, is alive with suspended matter. It needs one more gift from the people who have handled it all evening. It needs to be left in peace. The settling room is farther back, beyond the brighter machinery, and the sound changes as soon as the oil enters it. Here the walls hold more quiet. The light is lower, directed only where it needs to be, a modest glow on stainless tanks, a softer reflection on the concrete floor. The air feels cooler in the corridor leading in, as if the building itself knows the difference between active processing and rest. When the fresh oil is transferred into the waiting vessels, the movement is brief and careful, then the lines are closed, and what remains is stillness with purpose. The oil in the tanks is not yet clear. Through a sight panel or under a small inspection light, it shows the same cloudy green gold seen at the separator, only deeper now in volume. Fine suspended solids and tiny droplets of water will settle gradually with time, moving downward in slow invisibility. A faint line is not fully formed yet, but the conditions for it are already present. The oil is still becoming itself. Ivo lingers near one tank, listening. After the centrifuges hum and the crushers' steady work, the room seems almost empty of sound. Then he hears it. Single drops ticking from a recently disconnected fitting into a tray below. Not enough to disturb the quiet, only enough to reveal it more clearly. He would once have filled such a room with questions, with unnecessary checks, with motion to prove he was useful. Tonight he only stands and watches the dim light hold on the curved steel. Tomás comes in after shutting down one section of the line with Rosa. Machines do not stop all at once. One motor falls silent, then another. Water is turned off. A conveyor rests. A hose is hung on its bracket. The mill exhales in stages. Each small ending makes the building larger and calmer. Rosa stacks the last empty crates in columns by the wall, their inner surfaces still damp from washed fruit and rinsed dust. Nuno wheels aside a bin that will be dealt with in the morning. Layla wipes a rail, folds a cloth, and glances through the open doorway toward the night outside, which is now fully dark. No one speaks loudly because the work does not call for it. If words come, they are practical and low. "Leave that for morning," Rosa says once. Nuno nods. Tomás checks the valves on the settling tanks with the same care he used earlier, but it is a different kind of care now, not pressured, not counting ahead. The evening's main labor is complete. There are always more tasks in any working place, but not all tasks belong to the same hour. He knows better than to disturb what now needs quiet. In another room, a final switch clicks. The remaining hum reduces again. What stays behind after shutdown is not silence exactly. Buildings keep a residue of sound. A faint ringing in metal, water moving somewhere far off in a pipe, shoes on concrete, softer than before because so much else has ceased. The warmth of the mill is still present, held in walls, in machinery, in the hands and backs of those leaving it. Tomás stands before one tank a little longer than necessary. From outside, in the grove, he had felt the night as a narrowing window. Fruit ready, light fading, stages waiting. He had carried the whole sequence in his shoulders. Here, with the oil resting in dim light, the sequence no longer presses forward. It has arrived at the part that depends on no human speed. Suspended matter will sink in its own time. Cloudiness will ease. The oil will become calmer by being left alone. He feels it as a release in the body. The work is not finished because he has conquered it. It is finished because each stage has been met at its own pace, and this last stage asks almost nothing except trust. Layla passes the doorway on her way out, pausing only long enough to look in. The tank light catches the faint stain on her wrist where olive paste dried and was washed away incompletely. She gives Tomás a small goodnight with her hand rather than her voice. He answers the same way. Ivo follows later, slower than before, no longer trying to make himself visible, He has seen that skill can look like waiting, like a lid closed at the right time, like a tank left untouched. When he turns off the corridor light behind him, only the lower illumination in the settling room remains. One by one, the others disperse. Rosa into the dark parking area carrying her lunch tin, Nuno to the truck, which now holds only empties, Layla down the path past the moth-drawn lamp. Their footsteps recede and are absorbed by the night outside. The olive grove they came from is invisible now except in memory and in what rests here after passing through water, steel, pressure, warmth, and patient turning. Tomás is the last to leave the room. Before he does, he looks once more at the tanks. Fresh olive oil rests behind the steel, faintly opaque, green gold under dim light, still settling. No movement is required from him, no correction, no speed. The final act of care is not to interfere. He switches off the brighter overheads and leaves only the small tank lights. The room narrows into a handful of soft reflections. In their glow, the oil seems almost to hold the evening inside it. Dust from the grove, long since washed away, leaf scent from the crusher, warmth from the malaxer, the first cloudy thread from the separator, all of it brought here and quieted. Then he closes the door gently behind him. The mill keeps the warmth of recent labor. The tanks keep their stillness. Somewhere beyond the walls, under the dark trees, nets lie folded again. And in the settling room where the last human footsteps have faded, the oil remains at rest, cloudy and calm, continuing its slow, unseen clearing through the night. Thank you for spending this time with the Night Sky Reader. May your night be peaceful. Until next time, rest well.